Its role is to inform and advance good food and agriculture policy through coordinated convenings, education, and mobilization, all designed to build community power and support resilient, prosperous, and equitable local food systems across New Jersey. Next slide, please. Thanks. NJFDC's mission is to build, grow, and empower a grassroots network of food system stakeholders to together transform New Jersey's food and agriculture system so that it is more resilient, accessible, and prosperous for everyone. These are our values that you can see here on the slide. We take these values very seriously, and they shape both our policy strategy and the way we support partners and communities. Here you see our 4 focus areas. Our work is centered on these 4 interconnected policy areas or focus areas: healthy food for all, regional food system resilience, farmer and food system worker advancement, and regenerative food systems and farming practices. These priorities reflect the real conditions and needs of New Jersey's food system and anchor the solutions that we advance together with our partners and our network. Moving on to the purpose of our workshop today. The purpose of today's workshop is to increase redemption rates or sales made with food and nutrition benefit programs like SNAP and Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program at direct-to-consumer markets across the state, and to improve the communication and collaboration between market operators, farmers, community leaders, local agencies, and stakeholders. We believe that communication and coordination between the main players that help make a farmer's market successful or not as successful, but that communication, when it's working and when it's there, is key to increasing those redemption rates and making those sales higher so that there's more purchasing power for the people who are using those benefits and there's more revenue generated for farmers. So moving on to our agenda for today. We have a great agenda. We have an amazing group of speakers that we're excited to get started with. And we're going to cover these topics, and we're going to share resources and contact information. It's going to be great. So to get us started and to frame today's workshop, I'm pleased to introduce my friend and colleague and one of the co-founders of New Jersey Food Democracy Collaborative, Alicia Newcomb. Alicia is the Executive Director of Communities Revolutionizing Open Public Spaces, or C.R.O.P.S. C.R.O.P.S works to alleviate food insecurity by expanding access to fresh, locally grown and raised foods and strengthening community health through education, advocacy, and collaborative solutions. Lisa has spent the last 7 years building a healthier food system in South Jersey, is a founding member of the New Jersey Inclusive Local Markets Working Group, and helps lead the Green Coalition of Atlantic City. She also serves as the Greater Atlantic City Chamber of Commerce and the Atlantic County Agricultural Development Board. We're really fortunate to have Alicia with us today and to get us started. So we'll turn it over to you, Lisa. I'm going to spotlight you. And thanks.
Thanks for having me, Janine. Um, yes, I am the executive director of C.R.O.P.S now, but I also wanted to mention that when I first started with C.R.O.P.S, I started as a volunteer at the farmers market, and then helping to run the farmers market, and then I got our farmers market certified to take SNAP. So that was kind of like years ago, the entrance into the farmers market and working with local ag. Like trajectory that I've been on. But I just wanted to say, like, I am super excited, and I know that, I'm only one voice, and I just want to shout out like the local access working group that we have had for the last, oh my gosh, how many years now, Janine? Five, six?
5 years and counting. Yeah, the local.
Yeah. Um, and that has always had voices from across the entire state. And I'm sure that Janine and Brianna will, at some point, mention the toolkit that we put together last year. But like, I highly recommend, if you haven't read through that toolkit, to look through it and also contact some of the organizations and farmers markets that are mentioned in there, because they definitely have a very wide variety of information and definitely resources and education around an experience in farmers markets. So I don't want to take a lot of time on this, but I did just want to kind of start off by like the working through the acronyms for food benefits because when I first started having conversations with a lot of the people through the Food Democracy Collaborative and other places, I definitely did not know all the acronyms. So I would be like, all right, I'm taking notes and I'm writing it down. And did you say M or did you say N? And like, how do I look that up later on? And so SNAP is Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, which used to be called food stamps. It's on a debit card. Food and Nutrition Services is underneath of the USDA, and they're the issuing agency for SNAP at the federal level. So when you become SNAP certified as a farmer or farmer's market, you go through the Food and Nutrition Service at the federal level. And then at the state in New Jersey, you'd be dealing with the New Jersey Department of Health and Human Services, which we don't deal with often, but they did help us out in getting a POS system in the very beginning when we became SNAP certified in order to be able to run EBT cards. And I should have put EBT on here, but EBT cards are the like debit card for SNAP, and that stands for Electronic Benefits Transfer. And then WIC is Women, Infants, and Children. That is also a federal, like, does get federal funding, but in New Jersey, it's administered and you are certified through the New Jersey Department of Health. And they, excuse me, do the certification process for both the like classic WIC benefits as well as the farmers market FMNP programs. And so the classic benefits for WIC are on a debit card now. They used to be paper checks. And the WIC FMNP and senior FMNP programs are the farmers market nutrition programs, which are separate from, like, in the case of WIC, it's a separate voucher from your actual WIC benefits where you are getting benefits to pay for a variety of items like formula and dairy and eggs and meat, and like it's all categorized. The farmers market nutrition vouchers are totally separate from that. And they are a QR code. That's how they're administered. It's a special voucher. It's on a, like, you qualify for it on an annual basis. It's only live from June till November. And when it started, it was started as an economic incentive for farmers, and it was administered through both the New Jersey Department of Health and the New Jersey Department of Ag. The New Jersey Department of Ag is not in charge of that anymore. It's solely under New Jersey Department of Health. And it's really just to help WIC families and qualifying seniors purchase more New Jersey grown produce. So it does have to be spent on New Jersey grown produce. And at the state, like I said, it's managed by Department of Health. But then locally, it's typically managed by two separate agencies. So um, usually the WIC FMNP is going to be managed by whoever holds the contract in your county or region to administer the overall WIC program. So like down south, we work with Gateway Community Action Partnership, and that they oversee WIC in Atlantic County, Cape May County, I believe Camden, Gloucester, and I think Salem and Cumberland counties as well. But if you're up north, it would be someone different. And then for the senior FMNP program, that is also kind of managed off by itself by another agency, usually your county office of aging. And then Lisa Martin, you're lucky, is here as well, and we'll do lots and lots to talk about the SNAP doubling bucks program, the Good Food Bucks, which typically I think in most instances is run by a nonprofit agency, not really through the government. Um, and then, oh, this looks different a little bit. That's okay.
We just bolded some of the first
Okay.
words.
Got
Sorry to
it.
throw you off.
No, it's fine. So Janine asked me to talk a little bit about the different types of markets. And certainly the other speakers, I'm sure, have some, experience with different strategies around markets. And I know like one of the speakers is a farmer and can talk about this a little bit as well. Um, so there are definitely different types of farmer markets. There is like a farmer, and when we're talking about direct to consumer, we are talking about literally like you're selling to customers who are there to like buy a bunch of carrots and take it home and turn it into soup. Not, an institution or a grocery store or a, restaurant or something like that. And we have done several different types of markets. Like we have done a farmer's market where there is a multi-vendor, like there's 30 vendors there. They're not all farms. Some of them are crafters, some of them are doing bread, some of them are doing soup. So there's that type of farmer's market. But then there's also a farmer's market where the strategy and the goal behind it might be a little bit different. And you might be purchasing from farmers ahead of time and reselling that produce at the market, still directly to the consumer. But the difference there is really depends on the type of outreach you've done to farmers, the capacity that your farming community has. Have done in like typically we've done many farmers markets in Atlantic City, which is one of the EDA's identified food desert communities. And that does make it a little bit harder to do a multi like vendor farmers market because it's not an established farmers market community. So we've had trouble getting farms to agree because there's not a promise of making a certain amount of money. And so that's what we've heard from a lot of farmers in the past is like, I need to know I'm going to make, whatever, $2,000 or $3,000 off of a farmer's market to leave my farm because otherwise it's tough for me to recoup the cost of actually sending staff to that farmer's market. And so we do a little bit differently in Atlantic City. We purchase from farmers at a fair price determined by the farmer and resell at our own farmers market, but we're the only vendor. We don't have 25 vendors. We don't have a dairy person and a baker and a bunch of crafters and things like that. We're just there to sell food. Um, and there's also mobile markets, and there's definitely a lot of like great instances of mobile markets, which again, it would just be for the most part anyway, you'd be kind of aggregating products, both produce and whatever other products you wanted to have from those producers. And then you would have some sort of mobile component to it, whether it's like you're taking it from place to place in a vehicle and you're setting up at this place on Wednesday and this place on Friday. And, that would be like a mobile market. And then there's also farm box programs. So like a sort of off-farm CSA program, and that is something that we've been working on with Karen and Norwest Cap, Karen at New Roots, and we call it the C.R.O.P.S like farm share program underneath of the New Roots program, the Fresh Stop Markets. And that is a sliding scale CSA program that does allow customers to use both like regular credit debit, but also SNAP dollars to participate in that program. So you're not paying up front for a CSA program like you might directly with a farmer. You can pay on a monthly basis or a biweekly basis so that you're allowed to use your SNAP benefits to participate in an ongoing box program. Still like food from a farm, a farm partner that we work with, but it's just a little bit more consistent than just relying on the farmer's market season. And of course, there are instances and examples of places that run farmers markets year round. We're just not one of them. But then just a little reminder, if you are going to be a market that is a multi-vendor market and you have multiple farms there and lots of other vendors, and you hold a SNAP certification and a farmer holds a SNAP certification, FNS does not want you making SNAP transactions and operating two FNS numbers at the same time. And their preference is that the farmer's market does all of the SNAP transactions that are coming through that market instead of the farm. And just again, a reminder that Good Food Bucks is really the way to go if you're going to get SNAP certified. You should also get an application in with City Green and to take Good Food Bucks because it can double the consumer's purchasing power. And that has to be spent on New Jersey produce also. Okay, so just some high level points. I always tell people this. I mean, we work with a lot of different nonprofit organizations in our region, and something that everybody wants to do is run a farmers market. And I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I love farmers markets. But yes, that's right. The Food Trust also does operate a SNAP doubling program as well. Um, the first and foremost, I always say you've got to identify the why behind your market. Like what is your goal with the farmers market? Is your goal like to post something pretty on your downtown Main Street Instagram because that's not the best. That's not the only reason you should be running a farmer's market. But when we kind of transitioned away from running a multi-vendor farmers market, we really identified that the why was we were just really trying to connect local food that's grown by farmers that we know in this community and folks that are trying to use their SNAP benefits and their WIC benefits. And that was our main focus. And that was why we decided we didn't need to be a multi-vendor farmers market anymore. So that's the why behind your market is definitely going to impact your strategy. Also, I always say that you should be um, really mapping out your community's assets and talking to them ahead of planning a farmer's market. I have always had the experience that a farmer's market really doesn't do well if it's only spearheaded by one singular person or one singular entity. It's really is a community effort. And it's really not just a build it and they will show up. You might think that a location, a parking lot somewhere is a great idea, but if you haven't talked to the businesses in that, parking lot, or you haven't thought about where your transportation stops, your bus stops are in relation to that market, and how long of a walk it is between the parking lot and the closest bus stop, it might not be a great idea. And the experience we've had is it really takes like 3 years to gain traction in a location that's brand new and to gain, a customer base and support. And also, um, these are not like one, two, three, four in order of importance. So they're all the same amount of importance. Talk to your farmers very early before you are planning a brand new farmer's market. If you're not inheriting a farmer's market in Collingswood or something like that, where it's been running for many, many years and it's brand new, you really do have to talk to the farms early on to understand what their level of buy-in can be and what their level of capacity is in terms of being able to participate in a market. Um, and then Janine just asked me to talk through some of like our main challenges, and I would say point of sale has definitely been one of those. So if our food distribution coordinator is on the call I saw, and we've currently got three different POS systems, one for credit cards and debit cards, one for SNAP EBT cards, and then a separate one for the WIC benefit, the WIC and the FMNP benefits that we take. And we are finally able to get it down to hopefully two POS systems this season instead of three. But it's a technical challenge when you're talking about being out in a parking lot or you know, a park or something like that where you're not just like hooked up to an entire computer system. And so running three different types of POS systems plus Wi-Fi is definitely a challenge. It would be lovely if all of the food benefit programs could be on one singular account or taken under one singular POS system, but that's why we have the Food Democracy Collaborative to advocate for things like that. And then I would say also promotion of markets can be a challenge. You really have to leverage your partnerships with the municipality, the county. There are a number of places that you can promote your market at the state level. The Food Democracy Collaborative does a really great job every year of putting out a list of all of the markets across the state that take food nutrition benefits. And talking to the businesses and institutions and your other partner nonprofits in the community that you're running it in. For example, what's your healthcare system look like in that community? Is there a possibility that they'd be willing to pass out flyers or text their clients ahead of time if your market is like right nearby them? Um, and also the cost of running markets without grants. I don't recommend it. And that's
Particular,
it.
in particular, these kinds of markets where FNA,
Yes.
your why is connecting locally grown food to people using these benefit programs.
Hmm.
And we'll hear more about that from Lisa Martin. So that's actually the absolute perfect segue. Lisa Newcomb, thank you very much. Um, we are running a little bit behind on time, so we're going to ask you to hold questions and put them in the chat for later on. Big thanks to Lisa Newcomb for really grounding us in some of the important, like sort of farmers markets, direct to consumer markets 101 terminology, lay of the land. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Martin now from City Green to take us the rest of the way when talking about funding your market. I'm going to figure out how to spotlight you in a second, Lisa Martin. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Janine. I'm Lisa Martin. I'm the Director of Food Access at City Green. For anyone who's unfamiliar, City Green is an urban farming and gardening nonprofit. We're based in northern New Jersey. We have our own mobile farm stand program called the Veggie Mobile that's operated from our two farms in North Jersey. And we also administer the statewide Good Food Bucks SNAP Nutrition Incentive Program, which has been mentioned a couple times already. So thank you for those shout outs. We work with farmers markets, and grocery stores all over the state. So I'll talk today about funding your farmers market a little bit generally, but primarily focused on the operational costs and funding opportunities specifically for food and nutrition programs like SNAP and WIC and incentives. So first, what are the costs that are associated with operating these programs? As Lisa just outlined for us, these programs are all administered by different agencies and they all have different payment mechanisms. So they require different equipment and fees and things like that. So for SNAP, which again is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that requires a card reader. Those benefits are administered on the family's first debit card. And so you need a piece of equipment that can accept debit cards and is capable of accepting PIN numbers. The FMNP program, which again is the Farmers Market Nutrition Program and has both WIC and senior program buckets underneath that. That's administered by the New Jersey Department of Health and is administered or processed through QR codes. And so to accept a QR code payment, you need a smart device. So that can either be a tablet or a smartphone. And you also need internet connection. So that's an additional cost to have the data plan or the Wi-Fi to process those QR codes. And then we have incentives. So again, City Green's program is called Good Food Bucks. And we work to double the value of SNAP dollars. So anytime someone spends $1 from their SNAP card, they earn an additional Good Food Buck dollar for more fruits and vegetables. And that's often done through what we call an alternative currency, so paper coupons or wooden tokens. And there's an additional cost to represent that alternative currency. So as Lisa said, like with all of these different programs, you might have a few different pieces of processing equipment to be able to even take the payments. And across all of these, there's administrative costs, right? Someone needs to be there swiping cards, scanning QR codes, keeping accurate records of the payments and the transactions. If you have grant funding, you need to be reporting on those. And there's a time commitment, not only for being at the market, but for promoting the market and doing the behind the scenes work. So I wanted to talk about some of the funding opportunities for those specific pieces of equipment. So SNAP is kind of your traditional, there's a bunch of different options, but we can kind of think of this as a traditional card reader, and this can be integrated with credit and debit card readers. And there's a couple of programs where you can get free SNAP equipment. One is from the New Jersey Department of Human Services. So they offer free equipment to farmers and farmers markets who reach out to them and request it. The machine is called the PAX A80, and it's similar to what you see in the graphic here. It's kind of like what you often see at bodegas or farmers markets for swiping cards. The equipment they provide to you does only accept EBT. If you wanted to integrate credit and debit services onto that, it would cost an additional fee. You would need to talk to the point of sale provider to add that onto the equipment or have separate equipment to process credit and debit. There's also a national program called MarketLink. They're really excellent and they provide 1 year of free EBT processing equipment, which operates through a bring your own device program. So if you have a smart device like a tablet or a smartphone, you'll get access to the TotalPay Go app and a Bluetooth card reader, and they will support you in getting that set up. We've had a lot of partners who go with this option and have been really happy with it. The benefit of working with MarketLink is they have amazing technical assistance and customer service. Their whole goal is to support farmers and farmers markets in taking nutrition programs. It's like the crux of what they do. So if you're looking for that really like hands-on support, MarketLink's a great option to go with. And then for anyone who enrolls in our Good Food Buck program, so if you're a farmer, farmers market who signs up and operates nutrition incentives with us with City Green, we do offer mini grants to partners to reimburse you for the cost of EBT equipment if you don't have one of the free options. So if you end up with this last option of needing to purchase EBT equipment outright or lease it from a POS company, we do have small mini grants to cover some of the cost of that. And then moving on to FMNP, again, you need a smart device for this. The Department of Health has offered some qualifying farmers markets free tablets and devices. Um, there's not always, it might not meet your needs, the options that they have available through that. So if you really want like an iPad, for example, that specific type of equipment is typically not covered by Department of Health. I'm also not entirely sure if that will still be available in 2026. But historically, they have provided some free smart equipment devices for farmers and markets. And then beyond that, you would have to purchase or lease a smart device. And you also want to think about like where your market is set up because that might involve getting something like a Wi-Fi extender because you do need the internet connection to be able to process those FMNP benefits. Okay, so those are the equipment. This is another one of those grant opportunities that Lisa had mentioned. So if your market's mission is to increase food accessibility, you're participating in these food and nutrition programs, we highly recommend you get involved with an incentive program, and New Jersey has City Green's Good Food Bucks program. So Good Food Bucks is funded by the USDA through a GusNIP grant, as well as by some foundation grants and some state funding from DHS. And we provide up to $10,000 for SNAP incentives, as well as $500 for marketing and outreach. And you get included in our marketing campaign and get free marketing materials and access to our mini grants, not only for EBT equipment, but also to offset some of the costs of your market staff operating time that it takes to be able to administer this program. So our applications are open right now. We highly recommend if you're a SNAP accepting market or farmer, go to goodfoodbucks.com and fill out that application before April 15th, and we'll be excited to work with you. Some markets also offer what I call market buck programs. So that's sort of like a general nutrition incentive that is privately funded and may or may not be tied to SNAP payments. So for example, like your health department might have a health initiative where they're giving out vouchers that you can use at the farmers market. So that's something to look into also. Those work really well when you have a good partner who can help administer it. Okay, next slide. Another type of incentive program is called a produce prescription program. These are few and far between in New Jersey, but we do have some programming available in Hudson County and in South Jersey from the Food Trust. You can see their little currency example pictured here. And these are typically operated in partnership with clinical settings where folks who meet certain health criteria are prescribed vouchers that they can redeem for fresh food at farmers markets or grocery stores. And this is another type of grant program that you can get involved with if you have a partnership with a clinical setting. Okay. And so moving on to some sort of more general funding opportunities that you can use to support the administrative costs for these programs, but also your market in general. So the traditional one that many markets use is vendor fees. So this is charging your vendors either weekly or seasonal fees to participate in your market. And that will vary widely depending on the size of your market and how well established the market is. You can look at things like shopper support and donations. In-kind donations can be really useful as well. So that might be volunteer time from people. Maybe you can get an intern to do graphic design support for your marketing. Maybe the town can donate traffic control time, things like that. Think about how you can leverage the skills and relationships of your board members or community members to raise some additional support. You can do market merchandise and sell that for the market, like tote bags and t-shirts, annual appeals and fundraising events, as any nonprofit or organization would approach, are always an option. Friends of the Market program is something that's been done in like New York State and elsewhere, and that's sort of a membership fee program. So folks who are really invested in the market can sign up and have a membership to the market, and in exchange, maybe they get access to certain merchandise or certain privileges. That's a nice way to build community and also opens up an opportunity to have access to a pool of invested volunteers who can support with some operations. This is sponsorships is one of my favorite recommendations to give to farmers markets. If you can get a local business to team up with your team, and for example, maybe your local hardware store can purchase the tents and tables for your market, and in exchange, they get their logo and information printed on your promotional materials. That's a really great way to generate some revenue and get some equipment and support for the market. And then lastly, there's grants. This is like one of the big benefits of accepting food and nutrition assistance programs that it opens up grant funding opportunities for you because grants are often focused on things like health or sustainability or open public spaces. So you want to look at funding grant opportunities that will support those things. Um, there are funding opportunities available from the federal government. Those are often large and not necessarily the best fit for an individual market. But if you team up with other nonprofits or green teams or other local entities that have similar goals and mission, you'll often be successful and can bring some funding and have like a joint success with a local organization. So if we want to go to the next page, yeah, so these are just some resources. Like I mentioned, you can contact NJDHS or MarketLink for free EBT equipment. Goodfoodbucks.com/resources also has all this information that you can link to from there. New Jersey Office of the Food Security Advocate has a pretty good and up-to-date list of funding opportunities, meaning grants related to food security. So definitely check their list and stay up to date with it. You can also always check the USDA and NJ Department of Ag websites for grants that might be available. I'm gonna highly recommend also reviewing the Farmers Market Coalition website. That's the National Farmers Market Coalition and the Farmers Market Legal Toolkit. Both of those have an amazing list of resources and expertise from markets across the country. So definitely recommend digging into those to learn more about what other markets are doing and what has been successful.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. All of these resources are going to be shared out on a link that we'll send towards the end of the meeting, along with other resources. I think we have time for one question. I can't see the chat, so if you want to choose one question from the chat to answer, Lisa, we have time for one.
I'm not seeing any
Questions.
questions.
Does anyone have a question for Lisa Martin before we move into our panel conversation next? All right, everyone understands everything that Lisa and Lisa have explained. So that's great. Okay, thank you very much, Lisa Martin, for going over some of those great ideas. And of course, there's ideas that I have flowing around, your comment about applying for grants collectively. If there's 12 different markets in the county or in the state who all need Total Pay Go or an iPad or a Wi-Fi extender, there could be an organization that applies on behalf of multiple organizations. And so this is the time of year to start thinking about that kind of thing with grant season and markets still a couple months out, which is why we're doing this now when you still have time. Okay, so I am going to now pivot to our panel. We're really privileged to be here today with three other women who are involved in these kinds of markets around the state. And it's my pleasure to introduce them. And this next session or this panel is going to focus on two important factors related to running strong food and nutrition assistance integrated community markets, and that is how markets organize staff and volunteers to support their benefit operations, and how effective communications between market operators and staff and farm vendors can help these programs to run smoothly. So we've invited these three speakers here to bring their different perspectives, and we're going to dive into some questions. So we have with us today on our panel Stacy Kennedy, who is an assistant market manager for the West Windsor Community Farmers Market and also the executive director of the New Jersey Agricultural Society. We have Christina Stone, who's the owner and farmer of Ornery Acres Farm in New Egypt, which is in Ocean County, and Lana Mustafa who is the executive director of Montclair Community Farms in Montclair. If you can, Brianna, I'm not sure if you can spotlight each of the three of them. Let's do that if we can, but welcome to the three of you, and thanks very much for joining us. So I'm going to start with you, Stacy. If you could begin by telling us just quick few words about West Windsor Community Farmers Market, and then I have a few questions. I'll read them now, but you'll probably need me to repeat them because you might forget them between now and after your introduction. But the questions are: how does West Windsor Community Farmers Market set up the systems for accepting F&A benefits? And how do staff and volunteers support that aspect of your market? And then a follow-up question will be about workflows that have worked especially well for you in that regard.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me today. I'm happy to be representing the West Windsor Community Farmers Market. And we're going into our 23rd season, 2026. We'll have our next farmers market actually this Saturday. So we'll be out there in the cold. Everyone should come out and join us. We are still hosting about 14 different New Jersey farms, and we will have about 40 different vendors this Saturday coming up at our market. So that's our winter season. It's a smaller version of our full season market that we're very proud of, where we have about 50 to 60 vendors, and over 20 of them will be New Jersey farmers. So we're happy. Our mission, first and foremost, is to support the New Jersey farmer and put them first. I co-managed the market with our amazing market manager, C.R.O.P.S, which she's on this call right now. She was able to join in. So Chris is here, and she is the spearhead and heart and soul of our farmers market. She puts in many, many hours. I help to assist her with the work that she does just to make it all happen. So she calls me her right-hand woman. And I did start previously 15, 16 years ago as a vendor of the farmers market. So I have a really great perspective of the market, helps us stay on our mission where it's, like I said already, New Jersey farmers always first, and they're our goal. We put on this market every Saturday throughout the season, and then every first and third week through the cold winter months, because we love our farmers and we want them to have access to a community that is happy to support their products and to come out and no matter what the weather is, where rain, snow, or shine, and we go out there. We know what our farmers do in a day just to be able to grow and harvest their food. They work very hard. So if we have to just, take on the cold for a few hours, we're up for it. And yeah, we have an amazing board at the West Windsor Farmers Market. There's about 8 board members. They do it out of the goodness of their heart. They're wonderful community members. And I'll tell you, at least every market, there's 5 of them there helping to volunteer, set up the market, take it down, and run our information stand. They're also shopping at the market. They're an integral part of our community and what makes the market so successful. We also work with amazing volunteers from our local schools. The children there, they come out, they probably have never been to a farm in New Jersey or a farmer's market. They come out not knowing much, and they leave, huge supporters, loving local food. Chris has written many, many letters of recommendation for colleges for many of the students we work with. They become family, and we really enjoy working with them. They keep us young, and and they keep the market going. So we help to train them at our information table. They help set up the market, take down the market, and do pretty much everything in between, from changing garbages to cleaning tables, and or tending to a farmer's market stand when a farmer has to use the restroom. As simple as that.
Can I ask you
We're
a
all,
question about that, Stacy?
yeah.
Like your volunteers, if you can say a little bit more about like when and how do you recruit those volunteers and staff, and what does the training look like preseason? Are you doing a training, you know, a little bit about what that looks like so that you can get really good volunteers, because even if someone works hard, you have to get them trained in the way you want things done, right? So
Yeah,
a
I'd
word
say
on that.
reach out to your local schools, let them know that there's an opportunity for volunteering at the local farmers market. We don't do much of outreach in that manner, but we wind up one or two kids will come in either because of a former, you know, they talk to each other. So then one comes in and then we start to train them and they tell a friend, hey, this is kind of fun. I do this on Saturday. And then they come in, we train them. We get like a roster of about 5 to 6 different volunteers in peak season. This is our first winter where we're allowing volunteers to come help us because usually we don't make them, I guess, handle the cold. We think of it as a shorter market day and season. So we usually handle it. But this year we have 2 dedicated volunteers that have been braving the cold with us, and they love every moment of it. They're wonderful. We work hand in hand with them. They stand with us at the information desk. They're working alongside of the 2 managers at the market. Then we send them off. We're like, oh, go walk the market, go say hi to the vendors, go see what's for sale. Get a perspective from a customer's point of view. Go make sure the garbages are taken care of. Kind of learning customer service in a way, also learning about what you know, their local farmers are bringing to market, what's available seasonally. They're getting educated every time they come out, but really, we're training them on the systems, how to run the EBTs, how to address customers properly at the information table, make eye contact, don't look at your phone. That's a big one, right? Um, yeah, they're wonderful. I'm happy to work with them. They're great. Honestly, our market wouldn't be what it is without them. They're definitely part of our community.
And can you say a little bit about how you set up your systems for accepting F&A benefits? We heard from Alicia Newcomb and Lisa Martin about the different point of sale devices and the different systems and which of the F&A benefits are you using at West Windsor Community Farmers Market. Is it that the farmers market itself is authorized by Food and Nutrition Services to accept those benefits, or do you have individual vendors that are accepting different ones? And if you just, I know that's a lot, that's a big question, but if you can say like kind of an overview of how you integrate these different benefits into your market.
So West Windsor Community Farmers Market, we accept SNAP. So we have the EBT system set up there, and we're lucky enough to have City Green there to help us match it with the good food bucks. So we have the matching and the EBT system that we handle at the information desk. So somebody can come up with their EBT card, swipe it for $25, we can match up to 25, then they have $50 to spend within the market. Um, that's kind of the normal, right? So when SNAP then went away for a little bit there in November, we rallied kind of a community fund with our board stepped in first. They put $2,000 into a community fund for about the 16 or so families that we on a weekly basis had been serving that were part of the SNAP program. So we wanted to look out for them. We wanted them to be able to still continue to access food at our farmers market. This $2,000 started kind of a community supported, celebration almost at our farmers market where our general shoppers were walking by giving us $20 in our donation jar, asking us to put it towards the community fund. We built up that community fund. We're still handing out vouchers to this day from that community fund. So anyone, they can just come up to the information desk, show us the EBT card. They don't even have to swipe it, and we'll give them $40 to spend in the market from community bucks that we were able to create. We're a nonprofit. I should probably mention that as well. So our board, they took from our funds that we had, and then the community just helped it grow. And they knew what they were doing. They were helping other members of the community be able to access fresh food, and they had a little extra money to make that happen for them, and people were really happy to do so. And the folks that are receiving it are very grateful as well. And I think it all works out. Our farmers even went the extra mile. Sometimes they throw in extra food during that time. They were just giving out free pastas and free produce throughout the market. We do have, Tina's on the call, Christina. Some of our farmers, they accept the WIC and the other programs that were mentioned that we
Yeah.
do not accept as a farmers market. We're not, certified ourselves, but we have multiple farms throughout the seasons that are accepting.
So that's a great question. That's a great point then to ask a question. So in your case, the entire market accepts SNAP on behalf of all the food vendors or eligible
Mhm.
food vendors. So that helps make it easier for the individual vendors. How are you then communicating to a shopper who comes in, or even before they get there? How do you communicate that there are vendors at your market that accept not only SNAP, but also senior, and I'm assuming senior and WIC FMMP?
Hmm. Yes. The vendors are encouraged to hang up the yellow signs. So we kind of point that out. We mention which farms they are. We have them kind of detailed into a little acrylic frame that's at the information table so they can easily access them. We have volunteers that could walk them to those stands if
Mhm.
necessary because we have additional help at the information table that can provide that service. And so if they were a senior, I would say the biggest problem with that program has been trying to read those barcodes and be able to scan them. But I don't think anyone on this call is here to help solve that problem, but that has been an issue at the
Well,
farmers
we can make a note of that, and I'm
market.
sure Christina will talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
And before I pivot over to Lana and Christina with additional questions on their perspective, I was wondering if you could say a little bit about over the many years that you've been working with Chris and working at the West Windsor Farmers Market. What are the sort of practices and workflows that have worked especially well in terms of integrating SNAP? Like maybe you could talk about what point of sale device you're using, and is that evolved over time? Is that, have you changed kind of the technology that you've been using, and what seems to be working particularly well? What would you advise other markets to move toward if they
Yeah,
are a market like yours that accepts the SNAP on behalf of all their vendors?
Yeah, I'll say what works for us is early on, Chris established the token system. We have three tokens. We have kind of our own internal ATM system that we provide for our customers, which are our black tokens. So we're in a parking lot, a commuter parking lot that we transform. And so there's no ATM machine, but some of our vendors only accept cash, but we don't want there to be a barrier for them to get sales. So we took it upon ourselves to be able to run square transactions as an ATM for credit cards, and then we give them black tokens. So the black tokens are universal, can be used all around the market. All of our vendors are very well versed in the tokens system at West Windsor. We have the red tokens, which will be the SNAP tokens. So when you swipe your EBT card, you get the $25, say, in red tokens. And then they're matched with a green token, which would be the good food bucks. So green only on fruits and vegetables and mushrooms, red, SNAP, black, anywhere. And then our vouchers as well now, which is a new addition that can also be spent anywhere within the market because it's community fund. So we have kind of these three main token system, I'll say. Now we have also the vouchers. And I had mentioned all of our vendors are really well trained, so if we see a new vendor or if we see a vendor that sent out a new market employee, we make sure to greet them, welcome to the market, and we kind of go over this, what could be a complicated system for a new employee that's working a farmer's market. And they're like, what did I get myself into? Now I got to know what colored token to accept, what not, and Chris and myself, we work either with a volunteer or board member. We go around at the end of the market to cash everyone out,
I
right?
was
So
just going to ask that. That used to
we,
be my job when I worked at a farmer's market, cashing
you
out
know,
all the farmers. Yeah.
it's only hard when it's raining because it's hard to write checks in the rain. But other than that, it's fine. We divide and conquer. We each get a lane or a side of the market, and we kind of go around, and we always get our vegetable farmers last because they tend to, especially the ones that only take cash, we leave them for the end. And that's kind of our theory and our style, how we go about it. But we start and we end and we cash them all out. And we're also having conversations during that time. How was the day? Did anything, occur? So we get to touch base with them, Sometimes they're accepting the wrong tokens, right? So then we have to, you know, educate them once again about the token system and what ones they can and cannot take. And it usually only takes one conversation at that point, and then they usually catch on pretty well. But yeah, it's all about communication and just working with the vendors. You know, it's a two-way road, I think, in any situation, and that's how we treat it. And
Awesome.
we're there for them. We put the market on so that they can prosper, and we want it to work out as best as possible for our farmers.
Great. We have one question before I ask Lana and Christina to pitch in on this conversation. It's from Alyssa Thayer from the Food Trust. Alyssa is very familiar with operating farmers markets in other parts of New Jersey and Philadelphia, and she's asking when you're cashing out the vendors, are you giving them a receipt or a check?
Yeah,
You write a check.
we're writing a check. We thankfully got rent payments digitalized on MarketWorks, so now we use that system for all rent payments. So we're not collecting rent payments and cashing out tokens. So we've streamlined it a bit. Now we're just collecting the tokens and writing a check at the end, and everyone gets their
And
check.
you can, if you're able to, Stacey, can
Mhm.
you maybe put that in the chat when you say mark, what was the thing that you just said? Market.
Oh, the tokens. I'm sorry. Or so we used to collect rent and tokens at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Now, oh, MarketWorks. I'm so
Market
sorry.
works. Yeah. We
Like,
both forgot at
what
the
did I
same time.
say?
Yeah.
MarketWorks is a system. Yeah, there we go. Chris just wrote it with, is it an
Oh,
S or an X? I don't know. Maybe it's an
well, I spelled it phonetically or whatever. So,
Okay.
I, but
So
one of us has it
MarketWorks,
right.
yeah, it's a system we've been working through the kinks of probably the last 18 months or so. We've been utilizing it. It's what creates our nice digitalized maps.
Hmm.
Since we have so many vendors, it's nice. And we have kind of a little bit of flexibility for our vendors where they don't have to be there every week. They could be either the first or third or second and fourth. So that map's constantly changing, and we want our customers to know who will be at market that week and that.
And that way, you know, you're charging a vendor fee per market or rent, you're
Yeah.
calling it. Okay.
Hmm.
Awesome. Well, we'll come back to you, Stacey, with more questions. For now, we're gonna ask. I'll start with you, Christina, and then Lana. If you could each just say a little bit about, your farm, the markets you participate in. Keep it brief, so that we have time for the questions, which I'll tell you are, um, what parts of accepting these different benefit programs that market works smoothly, like what support from either market staff or others as like helps make it like what helps make it go well for you in an ideal situation. And you could even include in your response things that aren't real yet, but things that you think would help it go better, that maybe you would like to realize at some point in your careers. So Christina, you can start and then Lana.
Christina Stone. I am farmer in New Egypt. I started out by managing C.R.O.P.S Farms, which is my dad's. And when he retired out of vegetables, I switched over and took over, and I am now Ornery Acres. I do multiple markets, 5 markets a week, including West Windsor. They're the prime example to follow by. But other than that, I've got a lot of experience, 26 years worth of market experience.
And you are you're with Good Food Bucks, so that means you kept SNAP, and then you also do senior
WIC,
and WIC.
senior, yes.
Yeah. So unique that in that you are also doing specific, other than like a farmer's market like West Windsor Community Market, you're also doing just a WIC like I think you've said that in the past you've done like set up at a WIC
I have,
office
yes.
and done just exclusively FMMP there. Excellent. And
And a senior office also.
we have a couple pictures from your farm if we want to switch to that slide really quick before going back to our title slide. I can't advance the slides right now, but Brianna, when you're back to the slides, if you wouldn't share it. There we go. There's Christina. There's Christina. I pass Christina's farm stand on my way to and from Trenton. So when the legislature is in session, I frequently stop on my way going or coming to Trenton. It's on my route. So it's really great there. And there's lots of value added products there as well. Okay. So let's have Lana introduce herself and then we'll pivot back to the questions. Go ahead, Lana.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Happy to be here. My name is Lana. I'm the executive director of Montclair Community Farms. Started actually as their farm manager and their market manager. MCF runs a little bit different. We are a mobile market, non-refrigerated mobile market, actually. We mostly focus on senior housing centers. We do a couple of different farmers markets in Newark, and more recently started doing the WIC offices in East Orange. That started last year. We began accepting FNA benefits in 2023, and it's just been a game changer for us in regard to revenue and foot traffic and just overall market participation. Yeah, happy to be here and answer your
Thank
question
you.
when you ask it, Janine.
Yeah, I'm about to. Okay. So the question is, the first questions are to you and either, whoever wants to go first, but like what part, like I guess you can talk about like which benefits, you already mentioned that, but like, the point of sale devices that you use and which like
Mhm.
aspects of operating these or accepting these different benefit programs like work smoothly and how has that like how have you addressed problems from when you first started till now? Like are you using better systems or methods than you were maybe 5 or 6 years ago? And like what kind of supports help you operate these benefit programs or integrate these benefit programs well into your business or your nonprofit?
Sure. So for us, I mean, once you train your vendors on how to actually use the POS system, it's pretty straightforward. It is a bit time consuming, especially if you're processing a bunch of different transactions and everybody's using their benefits. Like for us, for example, if we're at a senior housing center and everybody wants to use their FMNP, that line can sometimes be a bit long. We use MarketLink. We don't have one of those swiping machines. So a lot of times our farm stand manager is actually putting in like EBT cards manually. But once you're trained and you understand how to use the POS system, it's totally fine. And it's just an amazing benefit. And like I said, just increases revenue like pretty decently. And then we also accept the good food bucks. So people love that. In regards to, I guess, functioning properly, we run into some issues, especially over the summer. We transitioned and updated thanks to City Green, actually. So we use iPads, new iPads. And despite having iPads with Wi-Fi, so we have a contract on that. That's amazing. Before we were using hotspot and that would get disconnected. One of the issues that I know we ran into last summer was the iPads overheating. And that can cause a major snag. I don't know if other vendors ever experience something like that, but troubleshooting that is a pain. Sometimes we have to like write transactions down and then go back and process when we get back to the farm. But as long as your vendors are trained, I think that's amazing and really beneficial. We don't rely on volunteers per se, just because they don't have the knowledge necessary to like actually process efficiently. They could help people like seniors answer their questions about their vegetables and things like that, but definitely not the processing aspect. Um, yeah, I think that's it.
So you
Christina.
have you have staff for that for the actually running the
Yeah.
benefits?
So we had the farm stand manager, and then we'll have interns supporting. We usually have one POS system per market. If you have a busy market, you definitely want more than that, just because the lines can get pretty long and people do get frustrated, especially standing out in the heat.
And I have one follow-up question, then Christina, you can, we'll pivot right to you to answer the same question if you don't mind. Like your point of sale device, Lana, where'd you get it? How is it from the state? Is it what are you using? You said Market Link, but
We use Market Link, and it's just like the app on the
on the
iPad, and
iPad,
then
right?
and then the same thing for Snap. So everything is basically processed, and we use Square for like credit cards,
All on the iPad.
all on the iPad.
Okay, great. Christina, tell us a little bit about your markets and then I guess we're starting with the point of sale device question.
So my point of sale device for mobile, I have an iPad provided to me from a grant from City Green. I use the Market Links, the Total Pay app. I absolutely love
Hmm.
it. Have never had a problem with it. My home store, I have the handheld device that was assigned to me when I signed up for Snap uh, 3 years ago. That has a tendency of not wanting to print, and so it works. It works very well. But with Market Link, they give you a little square box to use to process the card. I've never once been able to use it. Two boxes,
Yeah,
neither one will connect. It's
same.
always given me problems. I was in Hershey last week at the farm convention. They're sending me another one. They're going to walk me through trying to get that one to work. So hopefully that will work. But when my son's at a market, he has a machine to use, and we have the other one to use at the home farm.
There's a question in the chat on any thoughts on how to mitigate long lines at single vendor markets would be appreciated. We're going to try, so Sophia's with C.R.O.P.S, they run a version of a direct-to-consumer market that Lisa was mentioning before, and she said they're going to try two separate they're going to try two separate checkout lines this year.
Yeah, that's your best bet, honestly. You definitely need two checkout lines or more if possible, but then you run into like staffing issues and things like that. But keeping folks busy, and if you have volunteers, chatting them up as distractions might help.
And Christina, could you talk a little bit about in terms of communication, right? So we talked about point of sale devices. We've talked a little bit about staffing and training volunteers or training staff and training vendors. Lana, you mentioned training vendors. I want to come back to that because I'm not sure what you mean by that. But just for a minute, if we could talk a little bit about communication, ideal communication versus what you currently have going on, from the farmer perspective. What's
With the
like
management of the market?
yeah, like what's the perfect world preseason? So here we are preseason. When you get, in theory, you get an application or it's a new market, you get an application or you're getting an email saying, are you returning to market this year? Around what time of year does that happen? And what is in that communication and what do you think could be in it if it's not to make things smoother for a vendor who is using multiple F&A benefit programs?
I think that should definitely be a question that's in your application packet. Do you accept WIC? It should be in there so that then when they notify the public, hey, the farmer's market is changing or it's going to be at the same location. We are also having vendors who accept. Not too many market managers do that. I know one does. I will say the best market to be run is to be run by a community, by a group. The rec departments,
Nonprofit. Yeah.
yes. If you have a township rec department running a market, they're just a paid employee. It's not their passion. It's not their love. They're doing it because it's their job. They're not doing it because the want to do it. I've had markets that were started by groups. I've got West Windsor that is a group effort. I've got other markets that have failed, that have, that switched hand to hand to hand, gone from amazing markets to horrible, like no customers showing up at all, because the market manager has to have the want to do it. I have markets that send buses to senior centers to bring seniors in so that they can spend their benefits because they're on senior benefits or they're on food stamps. They bring them in so that they have access to food because other than that, they can't drive. It's the want. It's the want to help the
Well, let me
community.
ask you, Christina, as a vendor, if you're at a market where you could tell, it's like, and this circles back to originally Lisa Newcomb's statement about what's your why? Why are you doing this market? Is it to get nice pictures for your town's Instagram Main Street page? Is it to address a food security issue for seniors or other community parts of your community? Is it to create a new market outlet for your farmers in your community? What's the reason, right? And so when you're at a market where it seems like they don't really have a strong why, let's assume like that may be one of the reasons why like a rec department manager or whatever, like, or firehouse, I've seen volunteer fire companies run markets. Like if it feels like you don't know the why or the manager is not really making the most of their role, have you felt comfortable ever? Have you seen other farm vendors that are like, hey, has that ever happened where you're kind of like preseason or end of season or mid-season? Like, hey, we think we should have a little conversation here about like whatever, communication or sharing that, promoting that you have offer these different benefit programs, or have you seen that work or fail?
Yeah. I am the first one to approach a market
I know
manager
you
and
would
say,
be.
hey, this is what could be done better. 26 years of experience, you know what works and what doesn't. If explaining what could be done, what needs to be done, what works better, what doesn't work, where to put information out to help local community members get what they need. If it's not a love and a want, if it's just to make pretty pictures for their social media, they have no interest in building it. my
Right.
opinion.
And I think that one of the recommendations we make in the toolkit that we put together for markets that use F&A benefits that we'll share as a follow-up to this, that's the number one thing is to establish these methods of communication like pre and post season with the farm or with all the vendors, but with the farm vendors so that it's a collective effort to have a successful market. Okay, so anything else to add there, Christina or Lana, before I move to some additional questions? And we're gonna do like maybe 5 or 6 more minutes of Q&A and with the panel, and then we'll open it up to questions from the participants, and then we have a few other things we want to share before we end at 5:30. So to Stacy, we talked about I think we maybe have addressed these questions already. What training systems or communication tools help your staff and volunteers support the FNMP implementation effectively? So you talked about your systems.
We have a
You talked a little
clipboard as
bit about
well.
training. Yeah, go ahead.
We have a clipboard where we're just handwriting, how many transactions, how many families came through, so we can kind of keep record and make sure we're kind of staying on par, making sure we have enough tokens, ideally, are we running out of them, how many did we go through? That also helps with our second form of accounting, to double check ourselves as well.
And when you have teenage or high school student volunteers or any volunteers, your board members,
Mhm.
does the training look like they sort of shadow somebody for a couple of markets? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we always have a board member or a manager at the info table with our volunteers, so we never leave them for the most part unattended.
Mhm.
We do have a few, veteran volunteer students that have been with us, for many, many years that, they're well versed, but we still stay close by because they might have a question that they possibly can't answer for our customers. We want to be close
Yep.
by for that.
And have you ever experimented at your market with doing like a preseason or postseason meeting, or do you do staff meetings to help
We
keep
do we
everybody?
do a celebration party that we help to kick off the season with, which is always a really beautiful moment because it's like when the market all of a sudden becomes a family, right? We buy, we have great food, local food usually. This is the first year we had it catered by a local caterer who sourced local ingredients from our market, and we all get to come together. It used to be potluck style previous to that. So it's just a beautiful, it's nice to gather your vendors and really just be able to do an overall communication with them in a room, break bread, right? Share food with them, talk about the importance of maybe any changes that might happen. Last year we grew the market. It was a big deal. For Chris, myself, and the board to be able to tell our other farmers, hey, ideally we're not creating too much more competition for you, but our goal is to also grow the market, right? We're trying to be sensitive in both areas, but what better way to communicate that than in person over a meal? We
Absolutely.
showcase the vendor layout. It's kind of like the revealing of where your spot will be for the season. It's also a big deal for us. And it's always, we host it at a local we do it at the West Windsor Community, the Arts Council. So, we're utilizing a local business. We're helping to give them some revenue in return. So it just helps with the community atmosphere and feel.
I love that. Um, and so pivoting back to Lana, you mentioned earlier about training vendors. You mean for your
I I
farm?
I met market managers, sorry.
Oh, okay. I was like, that's news to me that you guys are managing vendors.
No,
And this
no.
question goes to all of you. You can, each have a turn to answer. What communication practices between well, I'll ask this one and if you feel like we've already if you have anything to add because we've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but what communication practices between market operators and vendors and customers do you feel like is most important for making those F&A programs run efficiently? So we talked more about like between the market operators and the farmers, but there's a third element here, a really important element, and that's the customers. So, you know, have you observed either at your own markets that you participate in or at other markets like best practices when it comes to communicating between the market, the farmers, and the actual customers that helps you have the best possible outcomes for your season?
We send out a
Uh,
weekly email to let the customers know. Hopefully the farmers are on that email as well. But I know Chris also takes the time to text them, quite frequently. She's a good, market manager in that sense. Her communication is key. Overall, nothing runs without you communicating it. I help with the social media, so we're gearing up for for Saturday, right? Like tonight, I need to create a reel. I need to like drum up traffic. I need to
mhm.
wake up our audience, right? We had
Yeah.
3 weeks off from our last winter market. It's very inconsistent, first and third week, right? So I need to keep it a bay. I mean, I have to get in front of them now. So like from Thursday night into Saturday morning, I'm gonna overwhelm the system to let them know the farmers have harvested, the bakers are baking. Like you need to show up. That's your job, So
Yeah, that's your
yeah,
role in this local food system
yeah,
situation, right?
yeah,
You're
like
not
Mhm.
get your
growing,
snow gear on and get on out to this parking lot because the farmers are going to show up. The bread's already been made. It's your turn to show up.
you're
So you can
reminding me of Jess Meterer from Chickadee Creek Farm. She's really famous for, in my mind, like I think of her as like she does these very like tough love videos of like, hey, we're out here, it's pouring rain or it's 100 degrees, we're harvesting, so you better show up to this market because we're growing the food for you and we're harvesting it and we're getting it to market. Like your
Yeah,
job is to get there, no matter what, no excuses. Um,
yeah.
I
um,
Very,
think Janine.
go
very,
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Lana.
I was going to say very similar social media, newsletters, direct to customer communication. Like sometimes we have, like when we show up to our senior housing sites, we have to make like several announcements. Like we'll talk to the directors, like, can you make an announcement that we're downstairs despite having like flyers and email newsletters and things like that. At some points, actually, our farm stand manager will text the seniors like, "Hey, we're outside," and then they'll like gather the troops and like actually come down with their friends. But it's just like any type of marketing, you just need to constantly be front and center because people forget or they're distracted or they're put it off till later and things like that. But just
for sure.
using any avenue for marketing is important.
You're reminding me that last year we did a workshop specifically on WIC and senior FMMP, and there's a video on our YouTube channel. This will eventually be on our YouTube channel as well. You can go watch that video. It's with from the North Hudson WIC office, and they have a system that they use where they can send a text message out to all of the WIC moms in their system the
Mhm.
day of the market and say, reminder, like you can come pick up your, prepackaged bags from George Aspercolis. He does their market and has for a long time. And so that constant contact, that immediate, last few hours before the market, if you can do something like that. So that would require, I guess, collecting voluntarily, people giving their
Mhm.
information to you. But that seems like it could work. So, what are to close us out before we pivot to audience questions, what are the biggest barriers, or gaps in this space right now? And that could be funding, it could be anything. What comes to mind when I ask you like what are the biggest gaps or needs right now in helping to increase utilization of these benefits, redemption of these benefits at local markets?
Mm.
Unworking QR codes.
Okay, let's get that. Those are the basics, like functional sig systems,
I
right?
think for us it's just awareness, and I think because we're a mobile market and there's also like the Montclair Farmers Market, it's like getting our clients to understand that they'll get more bang for their buck by shopping with us because we usually charge below market prices at our farm stand. So really, it's just trying to get their attention and making sure that they know that they can shop with us.
Go ahead.
I believe we're known to be a bit more of a high-end farmers market where, some of our vendors, do charge a premium for their
What they produce. Yeah.
goods.
Hmm.
We stand behind that. We're all for it.
Yeah.
Um, but especially when the SNAP benefits had gone out, our board did a really great job of going to like the local library, the post office, just places where everyday community members would go that maybe are not generally shopping at our market to let them know, like, hey, pretty much, right, if you didn't have the SNAP, you just showed us the card. We were able to give you the $40, right, to just shop at the market. So we were pretty much saying like, come to the market. We have funds for you to be able to buy fresh produce. So, just trying to get it out there, even, beyond social media, because, you have to think about the senior population that might not be on there, but they
Right,
are going
exactly.
to the post office or the local grocery store, or anywhere where there's a local community bulletin board and, get out a flyer and post it.
So we have a question in the chat here about expansion on the topic of consumer education. And I just want to give a plug that, and I think it's our next slide, if I'm not mistaken, or one of our next slides, that we have the second part of this two-part workshop is specifically about consumer education and outreach. So please register for that second one. It's still being planned. So if you know someone who's really doing a great job with educating and getting the word out to their customer base, especially people who are using these different benefit programs, let's hear from them. But yeah, so on that, what does consumer education or customer outreach look like for each of you? Christina, I know you have the Good Food Buck sign that you bring with you. I'm sure, you're all doing that, but I guess, yeah, throughout the season, but also ahead of the season. We have like a minute for that. So maybe just quick responses from each of you.
Constantly do social media posts, and I put up my signs. I hang them on my market trailers. I put them at my door. I'm actually currently making a sign, well, having it made to put by the road that says we accept EBT in big red letters, because I believe that red means stop. And that's like,
Hmm.
pull them in.
Or slow
And
down.
then
Yeah.
the next one says, we double snap. So I
Yeah,
got a
and just
major highway.
you do. Looking in the chat, people are saying that the text message system for WIC works really well because those, they're kind of like the WIC moms are like showing up for like an appointment almost, right? To get their to use their benefits. And then also I know in Atlantic City, C.R.O.P.S has done canvassing door to door, actually walking the neighborhoods and handing out
Mhm.
flyers in their community, which has worked really, really well for them. Lana,
I think for the WIC offices, I don't know if vendors can actually collect like phone numbers, but I know the office managers actually do, and they're the ones that send the text messages. And then just gonna agree with whoever mentioned the flyers in the chat. So if you accept Good Food Bucks, you do get $500 towards marketing material, and that's a good amount of money to like actually use for marketing and promotion for sure.
excellent.
Janine, I also want to talk about transportation. Like I know it was a small note on my slides, but like I feel like that is actually one place that is a challenge, but could be like a place to transform into an asset because like transportation is a real thing that you could call your city, your county, your Department of Transportation and talk through, why isn't there bus stops in this area? And like I think that that's something where sometimes there is like unusual or not often like thought of grant funding that can be accessed to. So we got some funding from another partner in the county who was willing to like basically pay for a jitney bus to go to and from our market to some different housing complexes throughout Atlantic City and pick up and drop off like every 15 to 20 minutes.
Wow.
So that was someone else's funding, but oftentimes a municipality will have resources to do something like that, or another like nonprofit organization will, and that's a way to promote, going to the market too.
And that's a really good point about like don't operate your market in a silo. Like your market is part of the town you live in. It's part of the county you live in. So sharing out with, I know Lisa, you've gone to your um, county commissioners to share what you're doing because you might identify a need that they're like, hey, we have this grant from the Department of Tourism or Department of Transportation or whatever. And it's like we could, make those connections between other resources that exist in your, whether it's your food bank, your, Chamber of Commerce, like look at those other sort of anchor institutions in your community and look for opportunities to make those connections. You never know what resources are waiting around the corner. Big thanks to our panel. We're going to pivot to any other questions that might be in the chat. Feel free to keep entering those into the chat. We're seeing things about door hangers in the neighborhood, flyers. People are maybe exhausted by social media, and just because you put it on social media doesn't mean you're hitting the correct audience, right? A lot of it is echo chamber and algorithm. So don't underestimate the power of good old-fashioned like flyers at your church or, flyers at the food bank, that kind of thing. Definitely flyers at the senior center and schools and things like that, because your farmers market is part of your community. And think of all the other organizations or institutions that are also part of your community: schools, churches, food banks, food pantries, things like that. Alyssa has a question. This is the contact information for our speakers. If you could just go back one slide, Brianna. Alyssa, you can feel free to unmute. I just want to quickly point out we have our own webpage where a lot of these resources are shared: the FMMP Best Practices Toolkit, the priority recommendations from the Inclusive Local Markets Working Group, the 2025 Farmers Market Directory, which we will be putting out a 2026 Farmers Market Directory, and other best practices for using SNAP at farmers market, etc. So you can go to that website. We'll put the link in the chat. And go ahead, Alyssa.
Oh, I just wanted to mention one.